what you and your colleagues there, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina and your other vice president colleagues and all of you there, you're thinking, of course, that Africa is doing well, growth rate of 3.8%, at least in 2022. But are you also cognizant of the fact that the African continent is the youngest continent in the world, and the African continent has countries that have far way higher population growth than the growth rate of 3.8%, which you're talking about. In Nigeria, for example, our third quarter growth rate was 2.25% for 2022, third quarter of 2022. Our growth rate here, population growth rate, is over 3%. You can also take other countries in Africa, Ghana, almost all the countries in Africa have high population growth rate. Prof, I see you are smiling, you know where I'm going to. So how optimistic is that figure? Because Africa should be doing more than 3.8%.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very clear point you raised, Nancy, because yet, even though the 3.8% is positive and reassuring that Africa's economies remain resilient, that 3.8% is nowhere near what is required for Africa to be able to break the vicious cycles of poverty. For example, the report also estimated that about 15 million Africans were driven into extreme poverty in 2022 because of the confounding effects of all that I have shared. Despite the positive growth rate, poverty is still deepening on the continent. The risk of debt default is still high on the continent and is still a major risk that we need to watch. And the reason is because of what you've raised. When growth rate is below or very near to the population growth rate, the more you're growing and the more you are growing your population, it means that you have more mouths to feed. It means that there is more need for resources to be able to sustain the population. So the growth rate should far outstrip the population growth rate if we're expecting the economies to be able to come out of poverty. And for Africa, what we estimate is that we've seen that globally, countries need to grow between 7 to 10% for a sustained period of time, up to 4 decades or 5 decades, before they can break the vicious cycles of poverty.